779 Walburgis, Anglo-Saxon abbess and Saint Walpurgis Night, dies. 806 Tiresias, Patriarch of Constantinople, Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic saint, dies at about 75. Birth date uncertain, c. 730. In 1246 David ap Llywelyn, King of Gwynedd, first to take name Prince of Wales, dies at about 33. In 1247 Hendrik Roman IV, Duke of Limburg, Earl of Bergen 1226-47, dies. In 1495 Semjin Sultan, son of Turkish Sultan Mehmed Roman II, dies at 35. In 1522 William Lilye, English classical scholar. In 1536 Berthold Haller, German-born reformer b. 1492. In 1553 Hirate Masahide, Japanese diplomat and tutor of Oda Nobunaga, commits suicide at about 61. In 1558 Eleanor of Austria, European noble Queen of Portugal 1518-21, Queen of France 1530-47, Duchess of Touraine 1547-1558, dies at 59. In 1601 Robert Devereux, English 2nd Earl of Essex, beheaded at the Tower of London at 35. In 1602 Everard van Reyd, Dutch historian, dies at about 51. In 1643 Marco da Gagliano, Italian opera composer, dies at 60. In 1655 Daniel Heinsius, Flemish scholar and poet poetics, dies at 74. 12. In 1682 Alessandro Stradella, Italian violinist and composer, murdered at 38. In 1713 Frederick I, King of Prussia 1701-13, dies at 55. In 1715 Pu Songling, Qing Dynasty Chinese writer Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, dies at 74. In 1719 Giovanni Maria Casini, Italian composer, dies at 66. English astronomer and architect St. Paul's Cathedral, dies at 90. In 1756 Eliza Haywood, English actress and novelist Love in Excess, or The Fatal Enquiry, dies at 63. In 1798 Louis-Jules Mancini-Mazarini, Duc de Nivernais, French diplomat and writer, dies at 81. In 1799 William Dawes, American soldier and patriot who with Paul Revere and Samuel Prescott warned Massachusetts Minutemen the regulars are coming before the battles of Lexington and Concord, dies at 53. 1. In 1805 Frederica Louisa of Hesse-Darmstadt, Queen of Prussia, a second wife of King Frederick William Roman II, who was obliged to accept her husband's bigamy, dies of a stroke at 53. In 1805 Thomas Pownall, British colonial statesman b. 1722. In 1826 Peter Ludwig von der Parlen, Baltic German courtier, general, and military governor of St. Petersburg, dies at 80. In 1841 Philip Pendleton Barber, American politician and U.S. Supreme Court Justice, dies at 57. In 1850 Daeguan, 7th Emperor of Qing Dynasty, dies at 67. In 1851 Ferdinand Simon Gassner, Austrian composer, dies at 53. In 1852 Thomas Moore, Irish poet and musician, dies at 72. In 1860 Chauncey Allen Goodrich, American clergyman, educator and lexicographer, edited Webster's Dictionary, dies at 69. In 1865 Otto Ludwig, German playwright and writer Between Heaven and Earth, dies at 47. In 1878 Townsend Harris, American diplomat, first Western consul to reside in Japan, dies at 73. In 1894 Steele Mackay James Morrison Steele Mackay, American playwright and actor Spectatorium, Paul Cover, dies at 51. In 1899 Paul Julius von Reuter, German-born founder of Reuters news agency, dies at 82. In 1901 José Rogel, Spanish composer, dies at 71. In 1902 Karl Ignaz Franz Umlauf, Austrian zither player and composer, dies at 77. In 1906 Anton Arensky, Russian composer and conductor, dies of tuberculosis at 44. In 1907, James Munro, Scottish-born Australian politician, Premier of Victoria, 1890-92, dies at 76. In 1912, Guillaume Roman IV, Grand Duke of Luxembourg, 1905-12, dies at 59. In 1914, John Tenniel, British illustrator, Alice in Wonderland, dies at 93. In 1919, Joseph Christjevens, Belgian auto racer, first foreigner to enter Indianapolis Motor Speedway Harvest Classic, dies in a testing accident at 37. In 1920, Prince Louis of Liechtenstein, nobleman and politician, dies at 73. In 1922, Henry de Surlandru, French sex murderer, guillotined at 52. In 1934, Daniel Protheroe, Welsh conductor and composer, dies at 67. In 1934, John McGraw, American Baseball Hall of Fame infielder, manager NY Giants World Series champions 1905, 21-22, dies of uremic poisoning at 60. In 1940, Mary Mills Patrick, American author and first president of Istanbul Women's College, dies at 89. In 1942, Leo Asher, Austrian-American operetta composer, Hoheit tanzt Walzer, Her Highness dances the waltz, Der Soldat, der Marie S. Soldier, dies at 61. In 1945, M. Rio de Andrade, Brazilian writer, photographer and modernist, dies of a heart attack at 51. In 1947, Friedrich Paschen, German physicist, Paschen series, dies at 82. In 1950, George Minot, American physician, Nobel 1934, introduction of a raw-liver diet in the treatment of pernicious anemia, dies at 64. 1951, Smokey Joe Williams, American baseball HOF pitcher, NGL, Mexico, Caribbean 1905-32, no-hitter 1919, NY Lincoln Giants, dies at 64. In 1953, Jesus Garcia Lears, Spanish orchestral and film composer, The Sun Comes Out Every Day, dies at 49. In 1953, Sergei Winogradsky, Russian microbiologist and ecologist, made important discoveries of the nitrogen cycle in nature, dies at 96. In 1956, Marij Gogoj, Slovenian composer, dies at 59. In 1957, Kurt von Wolfert, German composer, dies at 76. In 1957, Mark Aldenov, Russian-French writer and critic, Novi Journal, dies at 70. In 1960, Everhardus Jacobus van Romont, Dutch Antillean minister, dies at 51. In 1962, Wilhelm Pessler, German sociologist and historian, dies at 81. In 1964, Alexander Archipenko, Ukrainian-American sculptor and watercolors painter, dies at 76. In 1964, Grace Metalius, American writer, b. 1924. In 1964, Johnny Burke, American songwriter, Swinging on a Star, Pennies from Heaven, Polka Dots and Moonbeams, dies of a heart attack at 55. In 1966, James D. Norris, American sports businessman, Chicago Blackhawks, dies at 59. In 1967, John Griggs, American actor, The Joey Bishop Show, Phyllis Fosdick, dies at 58. In